Back to British Stand. We do have some breaking news for you as we do reach lunchtime, and it's with regard to the RAF Brize Norton breach. Now, of course, this has been a bit of a concern, or a huge concern, should I say, rather, since the story broke maybe a little less than a week ago with regard to the security. And actually, just before I came live, I saw a fairly funny meme. It's probably something that we should be laughing at as such, but yeah. A picture tells 1,000 words. Glastonbury in terms of security, look at the gates, and then RAF Brize Norton, one of the major RAF bases within the United Kingdom. The level of security on that side and the level of security for a music festival tells you absolutely everything. So as I said, we do have a major update with regard to this. As a bit of breaking news. And for those of you that don't remember, of course, this Palestine Action Group came in, breached RAF Brize Norton, and of course covered the aircrafts in red paint. Since then, of course, in the fallout was with regard to basically, essentially, saying that now this Palestine group is now going to, or Palestine Action is now prescribed as a terrorist organization on Monday. That's, of course, what Yvette Cooper said. However, there has been a series of arrests been made in this saga, and 4 people have now been arrested on the suspicion of a terror offence after the break-in occurred at RAF Brize Norton by Palestine Action. Counter-terrorism policing Southeast have said. They claimed a 29-year-old woman and 2 men aged 36 and 24 have been arrested. During the airbase invasion, 2 Voyager aircrafts were damaged in an act of vandalism claimed by campaign group Palestine Action. In terms of what the counter-terrorism policing have said, in a statement, they said a 29-year-old woman of no fixed abode, 2 men, aged 36 and 24, both from London, were arrested on suspicion of the commission, preparation, or instigation acts of terrorism contrary to Section 41, Terrorism Act 2000. A 41-year-old woman of no fixed abode was arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. The arrests, which took place yesterday in Newbury, Berkshire and in London, are in connection with an incident in the early hours of Friday during which damage was caused to 2 aircrafts at RAF Brize Norton. Those arrested are currently in police custody, while inquiries are currently ongoing. So a bit of a big move there, if you like, with regard to these series of arrests. However, a spokesman for Palestine Action essentially said of the terror arrest, said the fact that this arrest has taken place before the proposed prescription has been voted on further demonstrates that prescription is not about enabling prosecutions under terrorism laws. It's about cracking down on non-violent protests which disrupt the flow of arms to Israel during its genocide of Palestine. Prescribing Palestine Action is a political gesture to satisfy pro-Israel groups and arms companies who have been lobbying for us to be banned because we're hitting their profits and have a real impact on Israel's war machine. In response to widespread condemnation of the government's proposed prescription of Palestine Action from the leading human rights organizations, among others, the Home Secretary claimed it was an accumulation of actions which led to her assessment rather than a knee-jerk reaction by a humiliated government. Of course, Yvette Cooper claimed that Palestine Action would be prescribed as a terrorist organization back on Monday, adding the group to a list that will put the organization on par with Hamas, Al-Qaeda and ISIS. In a post on social media following the raid, Palestine Action boasted they had escaped undetected. In the footage, activists can be seen spraying red paint and taking crowbars to 2 military aircrafts. RAF sources said at the time that all aircrafts involved in the incident would undergo engineering checks. They added that the damage to the RAF planes appeared superficial, and Defense Secretary John Healey said following the incident, the vandalism of RAF planes is totally unacceptable. I am really disturbed that this happened and have ordered an investigation and a review of our wider security of the bases. So that's, again, what has, in terms of a major update that has emerged, 4 people have been arrested with regard to this act. And of course, this follows on from the news on Monday that Palestine Action would be now labelled as a terrorist organization, which I suppose is a shock twist to many. If we've seen these Palestine groups and activists just cut about cause carnage up and down the country, causing disruption to, of course, a main RAF base within the country. And the fact that the government are actually taking action speaks a lot of volumes, really, compared to what it is. Usually they just go for the sort of far right, and we've been always complaining with regard to these far left activists, thugs, or whatever you want to call them, that no action is ever taken on these individuals. So to prescribe them as a terrorist organization, I suppose, is a very big step forward. And I mean, the Palestine action, of course, again stating that they're not, and it's unfair to be prescribed as such, doesn't make any sense to me at all. You know, they're causing disruption to military aircrafts, going into military bases. This is a huge offense in itself. But then, of course, vandalizing aircraft. So I do think this is a very, very fair assessment. They say that it's peaceful protesting, nobody gets hurt. I've seen otherwise at their protests in the past. I've seen many people get hurt, of course, assaulting and trying to fight with police officers and getting actually violent at these protests. And of course, when you're breaking and entering into such places like a high security, or supposedly dubbed a high security military base, then questions, of course, must be raised. But on the bigger contrary as well, we're probably going to have a question and a debate about how these individuals got into such a high secure military base, undetected, as they quoted. That is a huge problem for concern. As I showed this image at the start of the live stream, Glastonbury has way more security than RAF Brize Norton. I mean, you can just jump the fence, so there's probably not too many questions as to how they actually got in, if this is actually the security there on the right side of this picture. But you can see Glastonbury, that's probably more like it, and a military base being so under secure raises a lot more questions to me following this incident. But for those of you just tuning in, guys, 4 people arrested under terrorism offences following that breach, of course, last week. Yeah. Good to see the police doing a decent job for a change and actually bringing these individuals to justice. But we'll see what sort of term they get, what they get in terms of sentencing and all of the rest of it. Will they get a big one? They probably should, if they're going to be arrested under these terrorism offences. But as we've seen with these far left activists, they always are treated under a 2-tier justice system, so probably would get lesser terms than, say, the people that wrote hurty words on Facebook back in the summer. But we'll be keeping an eye on it. We'll be keeping an eye on how long these individuals get in prison, or if they do go to prison, that is. But we'll certainly find out over the next couple of days, couple of weeks, if there is anything more to come from this breach and, of course, this terrorism offence. But guys, that is the breaking news, of course, for this afternoon. Do let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section below. Hit the like button.